In this video here, we're going to take a look at a barbell Romanian deadlift. Now this is a key movement in terms of strengthening up what would be considered your posterior chain or really any sort of hinge type pattern. The barbell here allows us to really maximize the loading that we go for on this. So just bear that in mind in terms of the prescriptions of sets reps. We've likely built it up from some intent maybe being for hypertrophy, any sort of like mid-range reps, or we've gone towards the lower end of our rep spectrum and really tried to maximize the strength benefit that we get from a movement like this. Okay, but a lot of emphasis here really on strengthening up what would be considered like the posterior chain of the body. Really important for athletic motions. The primary focus here being strength. We utilize it in terms of our more unilateral type motions in the future that are equally relevant as well. Okay, now when setting up for this, you can see we've obviously got to get a barbell and we've got our plates loaded to the side and our clips to help us as well. You can set this up on a rack where you can easily set it in and out with ease, as opposed to setting it up from the ground, going through like one deadlift rep and potentially wasting a lot of energy. And especially, as I said, if the focus here is on strength, we want to be able to really be efficient about this, making sure that we're setting up from a rack position, only stepping out, say 1 or 2 steps, and then going into our reps straight away, not wasting a ton of energy. Okay, when you set up then, you're going to grab onto the barbell sort of evenly. You can go by the knurlings of the bar and just make sure that you have it even, you're not lopsided. As I said, take potentially one big step away from the frame and adjust your feet. In terms of your feet setup, they're probably going to be more straight than pointed out, because we don't really need to open up the hips a massive amount where we would on, say, something like a barbell squat. From here then, we'll keep a pretty slight bend in the knee with the emphasis and focus really on moving through the hips. So you can see here, I'm going to stay braced with my midsection. I'm going to squeeze my shoulder blades back, really engage my lats, so I'm really trying to pull the barbell close to me. And then as you can see, the way I initiate the movement then is I will push my bum back behind me and I'll allow my torso to fold over. What I like to think of is I'm trying to allow my stomach to fall between my legs. My spine stays pretty neutral and straight. I don't want any excess movement coming from my spine. As I said, the primary mover here, I'm really trying to get my hips to do a lot of the work. So as I go down, I don't want to see myself rounding excessively with the spine, and then on the way coming back up, I don't want to see myself extending with my spine. So as long as I keep that throughout, I'll achieve a good bottom position. Then from the bottom position here, the focus really is on standing up tall, but pushing the hips forward at the same time. I often focus on that a lot of the time because it helps me a lot more than focusing on standing up tall. My torso is going to come upright if I focus as much as possible on pushing the hips forward, getting a good stretch in the hamstring, and really making sure that I'm working towards what would be like my comfortable end range position. I don't want to limit the range, especially as we go to add weight. We want to keep in mind that we don't want to see a massive loss in our range of motion in terms of how low we're going, and that's why a good pause at the end there can help us with making sure that we actually are near our end range of motion. We can kind of assess and see, can we go any further? But you're really going to find a strong benefit from here in terms of that eccentric loading of the hamstrings, and as you can see, my hips pushing back. One of the things that we find with this movement and any sort of hip hinge pattern is if we don't push back with the hips, that's where we see sort of a poor movement pattern. We might see some back rounding, whereas as I said, I want you to think of shooting your hips back or shooting your bum back to the wall behind you. You can see that slight bend on the knee. You can see a good torso position, a good strong brace from here, and then as long as I push my hips forward, you can see that sort of lever-like action of my torso coming back upright, okay? So as I said, really fantastic foundational movement that we're gonna go through to try and strengthen up our hip hinge pattern and really maximize the weight lifted on this, going probably more towards our sort of lower end of the spectrum in terms of the reps that we work up to. Or sometimes we might throw it in there for sort of like higher reps, more kind of hypertrophy emphasis on a movement like this, just because it is really a fantastic movement, okay? So, any questions or comments, be sure to leave them in the comment section below. If you like the video, be sure to like it, share it with someone if you think they're going to find it relevant to them. If you want to get more videos like this in the future where I show athletes how to improve their strength and mobility, be sure to subscribe to the page. I'll see you soon.